I'm worried that this is the third time we should be doing a true rebuild and we're going to try to win instead. It always ends the same. Well, Adriana, how do you feel about that particular statement?
I agree. The only thing I will say is, like you said, we have the toughest schedule. So there's a lot of holes that needs to be fixed on this team. And I know we've talked about this before, that all of us are worried that Joe Schoen is going to go on a spending spree, or he's going to give up future draft picks and do whatever he has to do to try and win now. And it's going to be Dave Gettleman and Jerry Reese, 2016, 2000, whatever, like all over again. And I think we just are, unfortunately, you're going to have to sit and wait and hope for the best. But I do think that this team has a lot of holes, and the fact that the quarterback situation is what it is just puts them in a tough spot.
Anthony, what do you think? I mean, if you're going out and signing big free agents, it doesn't really necessarily mean. I mean, you're obviously still trying to win now, but that they could definitely be part of a rebuild, right? I mean, T. Higgins can be part of a rebuild if they wanted to go that route. I mean, I know you're throwing a lot of money at him, but
I think it depends on the age of those free agents, and it depends on the structuring of the contracts, because if you're backloading them, then you're not rebuilding because you're trying to win now and you'll worry about the money later. But if you're front loading them and you have an opportunity to get out of those contracts pretty quickly, then I would say that they work in line with a rebuild. But I will say to this comment, I am also concerned about this. That's why I wanted to clean house. I wanted new perspective in here to rebuild from the ground up. And I think that the true rebuild doesn't begin until the Giants rebuild inside of their own organization and the front office. So that's what I'm holding out hope for. If it does blow up once again in 2025, then in 2026, finally they actually bring in a third party or something to reevaluate, do whatever they have to do, but rebuild the organization as a whole, because the status quo for the last 10 years has been utter misery for Giants fans. So they need to have a true rebuild, not only in their roster construction, but I think in the construction of how they construct their roster.
Very nice. Chris, what do you think?
I mean, I'm worried about whatever direction this team goes in, because whatever they do, it just seems to not work out. So whether they fire Joe Schoen or whether they didn't, I'm going to be worried about how everything's going to work out with this Giants football team. But they're not rebuilding. They can't afford to rebuild. Joe Schoen cannot afford to rebuild. He's year 4. Now they need to improve a ton of aspects of this football team. And I do think they're going to be aggressive in free agency. And I actually am not against that per se, because if you're ever going to be aggressive in free agency, now is the time to do it. You have a quarterback that is going to be on his rookie, assuming we draft a quarterback early in this draft. That's the time to be aggressive at the start of, because we all talk about how hard it is to win once you have to pay the quarterback. So you have 5 years now to spend at other positions to try to maximize that quarterback. So I'm not against spending. And based off of Joe Schoen's history, now it probably won't work because it always fails when we're the Giants. Thing goes to hell, but looking at Joe Schoen's history and at least up to date, how he has spent in free agency, he's gone young. Bobby Okereke was very young. He spent premium dollars on him. He was 25 years old. Both offensive linemen we brought in last year, Runyon was the guy we spent more money on. I think he was 25. So he has gone young. That's about as young as you could get for a free agent. And I think he's going to continue that pattern. But I do expect him to be aggressive. I think he's going to sign probably a young corner, a young wide receiver, and another young lineman. But I do think he'll go young, and I think they'll be aggressive. I don't know if it'll work out, but I'm not necessarily against that strategy at this point. I think that's the right approach.
Yeah, well, I'm going to say this too. Not that Daniel Jones is ever going to be the guy, but we talked, and you and I did, Chris, ad nauseum, that, maybe it wasn't what I was telling the guy, but he came into a really, really, really lousy situation. You don't want to put a rookie quarterback in a lousy situation. You don't want to put him in a situation where you want to give him the best opportunity to at least succeed, even if you're not winning games or you're competitive and he gets some confidence about it. Because I swear to God, I don't know what Daniel Jones would have ever been here, but I always said the guy lacked confidence. So there was always a thing that I felt like he just had no confidence in himself. That could be to do with the roster, could be to do with the amount of turnovers and the offensive coordinators and head coaches the guy had. I think it messed with his head. We'll know what Daniel Jones is when he gets an opportunity to start. We'll know if it was him or if it was this organization. But yeah, I mean, if you're bringing in a rookie quarterback, you certainly want to give him pieces to succeed.